Hi, today we're interviewing Dad and he's going to tell us all about the history of the valley and then a bit of personal history about himself. So I hope you enjoy that. I know that the family will. If you're enjoying our videos, then please like and subscribe because it'll really help out our channel. And don't forget to click on the notification bell so that you get notified when our next videos are put up. This is my dad, Carl, or Grandpa. Dad's going to talk to you today about the history of the property.
Right, well, I think to start with we should go back to the Aboriginal times. So, in this valley there were two specific Aboriginal items. About a couple of kilometres up the valley from here, is a stone overhang with a whale painted in it by the Aboriginal people, which indicates to me that part of their yearly cycle was to visit the coast. And we also know that we have a record of the Wollombi tribe being greeted at a corroboree at the Tuggerah on one occasion. And the second thing is, right on our property here, we have a little cave which has got a very black roof. And I inquired about the people we bought the property off, and they were a bit reluctant to discuss it. And I quickly came to the conclusion that it was from Aboriginal campfires. It was a campsite of Aboriginal people, and it's well and truly right inside our property. I scratched around on the floor, on the dirt floor of this cave, and I found some oyster shell, what looked to me to be oyster shell. So again, supporting of this idea of the people, the Aboriginal people here, going to the coast from time to time. Moving on to white settlement. In this district, it mainly occurred, the first settlement occurred in the 1830s and 40s. And in the 1840s, the government surveyors were going around the district and identifying the better land for farming and for people to live on, and they were surveying them before sale, and then these properties were being offered in groups of 10 or 12, possibly about twice a year, for auction, and they were sold at an auction. And that's what happened with this one here. And ours is 30 acres, and most of them were a little bit bigger, the other ones, but because ours had more good land on the bottom of the valley part of the property and less of the rough hillsides included in the area, it got by with a slightly smaller amount of land than a lot of the others. So that was in the 1840s. We know the name of the first owner. He was Samuel Moore. I believe he never lived on the property. He bought several properties around the district around about the same time, and but there was a resident on the property in the 1870s. There was a family nearby called Houlihan, who were one of the very first settlers of these 1840 era, or maybe even the 1830s. And one of the sons of that family married a woman from Singleton, and they came and lived on this. They bought this property, and they came and lived here, and they were here for possibly 10 years, no more. And they had children here, two of who died, and we've got graves here on the property for these two children. They were quite young. I think one was was only a matter of months, a few months, 3 or 4 months old at death, and the other one between 2 and 3. So, life expectancy, the death rate in young children was bad in those days. And also women giving childbirth and all sorts of things. That once people got through into their adult lives, they, some of them lived to be quite old. But they were the only residents on the property before we came here. The property and many others around this immediate vicinity were accumulated around about the late 1800s, 1890s, 1900s, before World War One, into a large dairy farm. And it was used as a dairy farm, as was the normal farming activity of the district, from roughly 1900 through to the 1960s, when the dairy industry collapsed in this along many parts of the New South Wales coast, because Britain entered the common market and ceased importing dairy products from Australia, or reduced anyway to a large extent. So some of the butter factories closed down, and like I say, the dairy farming industry contracted a lot, and this district phased out pretty largely in the 1960s. There were a few remaining farmers sticking with it for another 10 or 20 years after that. We bought this property in 1975. We were living in Sydney at the time. We'd been farming ourselves. I had been farming fruit and vegetables at the beginning of my adult life. Sold the farm, went to Sydney, and we lived and we worked down there for 10 years, and then we moved up here as permanent residents in 1985, and we're still here in 2023. When we bought the land, the value of this land here was the same as a house block in Penrith. Right, regarding myself, my father was from Finland, and he came here in the early 1930s, just in time to catch the Depression, and he got a farm in the Gosford district, and he came out here with his brother. They jointly had a farm there, and then my father went on to a second property a bit further away, and he spent most of his working life on this farm. He ended up retiring, and he became a real estate agent in the later part of his life. He met my mother here, who had come here as a migrant too, but she arrived here before World War One as a primary school child with her family, and they came from England. So my mother and father met here in Australia. Actually, my mother's brother owned the farm next door to where my father was living and farming, and the brother made the introduction between the two of them. So then I was born in 1940, and grew up on the farm that my father had. Went to work on his farm for a while when I first left school, and then he purchased another property nearby for me personally when I was still not quite 20. So I had that property at that point of time, from that for 10 years or so, and I met my wife soon after that, my wife Marcia, We got married, and she came to live on the property too, and we had 2 children. And then in the late 1960s, sold the property and moved down to Sydney.
What are your, earliest recollections of what you got up to when you were a young child living at home?
My father's property was absolutely next door to the local primary school, and so I walked to school each day and back home again. And I didn't mix it with the other school kids as much as most of them did. Most of them had lived, 1 kilometre, 2 kilometres, 5 kilometres, maybe even up to 10 kilometres from the school. And some came on push bikes, and some of them walked. And the road that went past the school went, so a lot of kids would leave the school and go one way or the other, and they'd be mucking around together as they went and so forth. But I wasn't part of that. So I was an only child. I was a very solitary child relative to other children. I was very close to my mother and father. The 3 of us got on very well together. I was taught how to drive the tractor when I was 8 years old, and there was a farm truck that I was driving by the time I was 10. And so I was being useful around the farm, from an early age. And when I had free time, I liked to go bushwalking, and I went bushwalking all by myself. I was quite very surprised looking back on it, that my parents allowed me to do this. They knew roughly what I did, but I could be 2 or 3, possibly even 5 miles from our own property, off in the bush. And on one occasion I remember seeing some timber getters cutting down bush trees and putting them on a big truck to take them back to a sawmill. And anyhow, if anything had gone wrong, if a snake had bitten me, or I'd broken my leg or fell over and just injured myself badly, I could have died. But my parents were quite content to allow me to do this. They'd so often asked me where I'd been, and I'd tell them as well as I could, and that sort of thing. And there'd be, they'd recognise odd things that I mentioned that I saw as I would walk past them. Because I was walking past other farms and that sort of thing, partly with, I was staying in the bush. But when I first was growing up, there was no electricity in the district, but my father did have a little petrol generator, and we had lighting, our own electric lights in the house. Radio worked well. My father had a bit of fencing wire strung up between 2 trees as an aerial for the radio, and we got the Sydney radio stations, and listening to the 12 o'clock news and the country hour on the news was a thing that was normal. There was no TV in those days. I'm talking about the 1940s and 50s. Early 50s, what I'm saying here. Dad had a house cow stove, which I milked on occasions. Would go to town once a week. Oh yes, another thing was, there were deliveries from the local town to the farmers of the district. There was a big grocery store that had a truck that ran out to the farming areas of the district and called on individual houses, and my mother would ring them up and tell them what she wanted, and they'd have it in a big cardboard box, and just drive up to the house and unload this box for her, and then there was a school bus that picked up the high school kids, which that started only just after my early recollections start, and the bus driver would go shopping for the farmers in between while the high school kids were in school, and so there'd be a bag would go to the butcher shop with a list of items in it, what was wanted, and that'd come back and be put in a box on the roadside, and I'd go down and pick that up, and mail would be delivered into this letterbox too, and so forth. There had been telephones available in the district at the time. They never had party lines. Just every property had its own connection to the local telephone exchange. There were no shops within 30 miles of where the farm was. No shops at all, no hotels, nothing of that nature. End of the 1940s, electricity did come to the district, and one of my memories was, and all the school kids enjoyed watching it too, was having the holes dug for the power poles for the electricity. In that they'd dig a hole with a shovel and a crowbar as deep as they could, but that was still not deep enough to be supportive to the telephone, to the electricity pole. And what they did was they had an extra long crowbar, which dug a hole, put a hole down in the bottom of this hand dug hole, and then they put half a plug of gelignite down in the bottom of this hole, and when it went bang, a whole mass of dirt went squirting up the hole and up into the sky, and it was a lot of fun watching it.
Yeah, I bet. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I know I did. And I plan on doing one for Mum as well, just because I find it really interesting how times have changed and how different their life was when they were young to what their great-grandchildren are experiencing these days. Anyway, so look forward to Mum's version too. See you soon. Bye.